Day 1, 0800 hours. FEMA Emergency Operations Center, Washington, D.C. Emergency Coordinator, Kalin. Classification level, restricted. The coffee was still hot when the first alert pinged across my terminal. Standard Radiation Incident Protocol, Level 2 Containment Breach at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. Nothing unusual there. Hanford's been leaking something or other since the Manhattan Project. I pulled up the incident report, already mentally drafting the press release about minor radioactive material release and no immediate threat to public safety. Then the second alert came in. Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Same classification. Same timestamp, give or take 30 seconds. I set down my coffee and leaned forward, the familiar weight of crisis management settling across my shoulders like an old coat. 2 simultaneous incidents at nuclear facilities 1,500 miles apart. Coincidence was possible. Equipment fails, humans make mistakes. Murphy's Law loves atomic energy. But 30 years of emergency coordination had taught me to trust my gut, and my gut was starting to churn. The third alert made my gut irrelevant. Savannah River Site. Same classification. Same impossible timestamp. I hit the secure line to my supervisor before the fourth alert could arrive. Chun, this is Lane. We've got a pattern echo situation developing. 3 nuclear facilities, simultaneous incidents. Define simultaneous, Kale. Director Chen's voice carried that particular brand of federal exhaustion. Too many crises, not enough coffee, and the persistent suspicion that today's emergency would somehow become tomorrow's congressional hearing. Within 90 seconds of each other. Hanford, Oak Ridge, Savannah River, all reporting level 2 containment breaches. I scrolled through the preliminary data streaming across my screen. Initial radiation readings are inconsistent. Inconsistent how? I paused, reading the numbers twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating from caffeine withdrawal. Sir, the reported radiation levels don't match the described containment failures. Either our monitoring equipment is malfunctioning at 3 separate facilities, or we're dealing with something other than standard radioactive material release. Chen's silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the secure line had dropped. Finally, I'm declaring Protocol Alpha. Full emergency coordination activation. Liaison with CDC, DoD, and... Another pause. NSA. NSA. That meant this had just graduated from nuclear accident to potential national security threat. The knot in my stomach tightened. Understood, sir. Initiating full coordination protocols now. The Emergency Operations Center transformed around me as Protocol Alpha rippled through the building. Workstations that had been displaying routine monitoring data suddenly blazed with priority feeds. Emergency coordinators materialized at desks that had been empty moments before, their faces already carrying the particular tension that comes with knowing your weekend plans just became irrelevant. My terminal chimed with incoming liaison assignments. CDC, Dr. Navarra Grove, Epidemiological Response Team. DoD, Specialist Kalin Mercer, Military Communications Division. The contractor liaison assignment made me frown. Alvera Vex, Biocorp Solutions, specializing in advanced decontamination protocols. Biocorp Solutions. I'd never heard of them, which was unusual. FEMA maintains contracts with every major hazmat and decontamination company in the country. A contractor I didn't recognize getting top-level clearance for a multi-site nuclear incident set off alarm bells that had nothing to do with radiation. Dr. Grove arrived first, her CDC identification badge still warm from the laminator. She moved with the efficient precision of someone accustomed to crisis response, but her eyes held something I couldn't immediately identify. Uncertainty, maybe, or concern that ran deeper than standard radiation protocol warranted. Coordinator Lane? She extended a hand that was steady despite what I was starting to recognize as carefully controlled worry. Dr. Navarra Grove, CDC Epidemiological Response. I understand we have multiple simultaneous containment failures. That's the preliminary assessment. I gestured toward the main display, where satellite feeds from all 3 facilities painted a troubling picture. What's your read on the radiation dispersal patterns? She studied the data for nearly 3 minutes, her expression growing increasingly troubled. These don't look like radiation clouds. No, I agreed. They don't. Specialist Mercer appeared at my shoulder like smoke, his military bearings somehow making the cramped operations center feel more spacious. Sir, I'm Kalin Mercer, Military Communications. I've been monitoring emergency frequencies from the affected areas. He handed me a tablet displaying communication logs. "We've got some irregularities." I scrolled through the logs, my frown deepening with each entry. Standard evacuation protocols at all 3 sites, but the confirmation signals were wrong. Emergency responders were using outdated code sequences, and several evacuation teams had missed their scheduled check-ins entirely. How long since the last confirmed communication from any of the sites? Hanford went dark 47 minutes ago. Oak Ridge 31 minutes. Savannah River. He checked his watch. 18 minutes. Dr. Grove looked up from her data analysis. That's not consistent with radiation exposure protocols. Emergency responders were protective equipment specifically designed for extended operation in contaminated environments. They should be able to maintain communication for hours, not minutes. The operations center's main door opened with the pneumatic hiss that signaled high-level security clearance. Elvira Vex entered like she owned the building, her contractor identification somehow granting her the same access privileges as career federal employees. She was younger than I'd expected, with the kind of polished competence that suggested either exceptional skill or exceptional connections. "Coordinator Lane, I'm Elvira Vex with BioCorp Solutions. I understand you're dealing with some unconventional containment failures." She moved directly to the main display without waiting for introductions, her eyes scanning the data with the kind of familiarity that suggested she'd seen similar information before. "Unconventional how?" I asked, watching her reaction carefully. "Well, for starters, these aren't radiation dispersal patterns." She pointed to the satellite imagery. "Radiation follows atmospheric conditions, wind patterns, thermal layers, topographical features. This," she traced the spreading patterns with her finger. "This looks organic." Dr. Grove and I exchanged glances. "Organic how?" "Growth patterns, like spores or biological agents following nutrient gradients rather than atmospheric dispersion." Elvira pulled out a tablet of her own, displaying technical specifications I didn't recognize. BioCorp specializes in biological contamination scenarios that conventional hazmat protocols can't address. "What kind of biological contamination requires nuclear facilities for dispersal?" Dr. Grove's question carried the sharp edge of professional skepticism. Elvira's pause lasted just long enough to feel deliberate. "The kind that's been contained in nuclear facilities for decades. Until now." My secure phone rang before I could process the implications of that statement. The caller ID showed a number I'd never seen before, with a classification prefix that made my blood pressure spike. "Lane. Coordinator Lane, this is General Morrison, Joint Chiefs Emergency Coordination. You are to implement immediate border closure protocols for a 50-mile radius around each affected facility. Full biological hazard containment. No exceptions." "Sir, we haven't confirmed biological contamination. Current assessment indicates." "Coordinator Lane." The general's voice carried the kind of authority that ends conversations. "The assessment has been confirmed through classified channels. You have your orders. Execute immediately." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind racing through the implications. Border closure protocols for biological hazard containment weren't in any manual I'd studied. They weren't in any manual anyone had studied, because they represented the kind of scenario we planned for, but never expected to implement. Dr. Grove was watching me with growing alarm. "What kind of biological agent requires 50-mile containment zones?" Before I could answer, Specialist Mercer's communication equipment erupted in a cacophony of emergency signals. He pressed his headphones tighter, his face paling as he decoded the incoming transmissions. "Sir," he said, his voice carrying the kind of careful control that precedes very bad news. "We're getting reports from the Hanford cleanup crew. They were scheduled for extraction 20 minutes ago. And, sir, they're not responding to extraction calls. Last transmission was..." He paused, checking his logs again as if hoping the information had changed. "Last transmission was screaming." The operations center fell silent except for the ambient hum of electronics and air circulation. On the main display, the organic-looking dispersal patterns continued to spread outward from 3 separate points, following paths that defied every emergency response protocol I'd ever learned. I looked at the faces around me, Dr. Grove's scientific concern, Specialist Mercer's military precision, Elvira Vex's unsettling familiarity with classified biological threats, and realized that whatever was spreading from those nuclear facilities, it was something we'd never prepared for. Something we'd never imagined we'd need to prepare for. Emergency Coordination Log, Day 1, 1,400 hours. FEMA Region X Coordination Center, Bothell, Washington. Incident Commander, Kalin. Classification Level, Confidential. The fluorescent lights in the coordination center hummed with a frequency that hadn't bothered me this morning. Now every electrical sound felt sharp against my nerves. 3 hours since the initial reports, and the data streams weren't resolving into anything that made sense. If anything, the picture was getting murkier. "Sir, you need to see this." Specialist Martinez handed me a tablet displaying satellite imagery timestamps. These are from the 3 affected sites, Hanford, Oak Ridge, and Savannah River, all taken at 0630 this morning. I studied the thermal overlays. Standard protocol would show radiation dispersal patterns radiating outward from point sources. Instead, the heat signatures formed irregular, almost organic shapes that seemed to be moving. "Martinez, run the imagery sequence. Show me the progression." The specialist's fingers moved across the screen, cycling through images taken at 15-minute intervals. What I saw made my stomach drop. The thermal patterns weren't dissipating like radiation clouds. They were expanding in deliberate, searching patterns, following infrastructure lines, road networks, power grids. "Has CDC seen these?" I asked. Dr. Grove requested them specifically. She's in conference room B with the technical analysis team. I found Navarra hunched over a laptop, her usually immaculate appearance showing signs of stress, coffee stains on her white CDC shirt, hair escaping from its neat bun. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes that looked like guilt. "Kale, we need to discuss classification protocols." Her voice carried none of the collegial warmth from our morning briefing. "This information doesn't leave this facility." "Navarra, I've been running emergency coordination for 8 years. I know how to handle classified material. What I don't know is why satellite thermal imaging of radiation leaks looks like something out of a biology textbook." She closed the laptop. "Because it's not radiation, Kale. It never was." The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything I thought I understood about the morning's events. Outside the conference room, I could hear the controlled chaos of a dozen specialists working phones, coordinating resources, following protocols designed for scenarios that suddenly felt inadequate. "Then what the hell are we dealing with?" Before she could answer, Kalin Mercer appeared in the doorway. The Air Force communications specialist looked pale, holding a printed transcript in his hand like it might bite him. "Sir, you both need to hear this. I've been monitoring encrypted military frequencies, level 7 clearance channels." He glanced at Navarra. "Doctor, some of these transmissions mention CDC by name." Navarra's face went rigid. "That's outside your authorization level, specialist." "Ma'am, with respect, my authorization level got upgraded about an hour ago when Base Command told me to monitor all relevant communications regarding biological containment failure." Kalin's voice carried the steady tone of someone who'd been military long enough to recognize when normal protocols had gone out the window. "Biological, Dr. Grove, not radiological." I took the transcript from Kalin's hand. The header identified it as originating from USAMRIID, the Army's Biological Defense Command at Fort Detrick. The timestamp showed 1,247 hours, less than 30 minutes ago. Flash override priority. From USAMRIID Command. To CDC Atlanta/FEMA Region Coordinators. Subject: Operation Lazarus Containment Status. Containment protocols have failed at all 3 designated sites. Recommend immediate implementation of Border Closure Executive Order 14823. Civilian population displacement to designated quarantine facilities to commence immediately. Dr. Grove has operational authority for biological assessment. Nuclear sterilization attempts unsuccessful. Repeat, sterilization unsuccessful. Biological agent demonstrating rapid adaptation to radiation exposure. Request immediate consultation with Project Blackwood technical staff. I read the transcript twice before looking up at Navarra. Her face had gone ashen, but her posture remained professionally rigid. "Operation Lazarus," I said. "Want to tell me what that means?" "Kale, you have to understand dash." "No." I set the transcript on the table with enough force to make her laptop jump. "You have to understand. I've got 3 governors demanding evacuation resources, a dozen state emergency directors asking for contamination timelines, and media requests from every major network in the country. And now I find out this was never about nuclear accidents." The silence stretched between us until Kalin cleared his throat. "Sir, there's more." I've been tracking communication patterns from the affected areas. Normal protocol would be emergency personnel maintaining regular contact with command structures. Instead, we're getting automated distress beacons from equipment, but no human voices. Equipment failure? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Negative, sir. The equipment is functioning perfectly. It's just no one's using it. Kalin pulled up a digital map on the wall display. Red dots indicated communication sites within the affected zones. Emergency frequencies, cell towers, even satellite phones. All operational, all silent. Navarra finally spoke. The biological agent affects nervous system function. Communication becomes difficult. Agent? I turned to face her fully. As in biological weapon? As in biological research project that exceeded containment parameters. Her professional mask was slipping, revealing something that looked like fear. Kale, Project Lazarus was supposed to be defensive research. Understanding biological threats, developing countermeasures. But the organism we were studying. She stopped, shaking her head. It's adaptive. More adaptive than anything we've encountered. It doesn't just survive in different environments, it modifies environments to suit its needs. The nuclear facilities weren't targeted randomly. They were selected because they provided the energy density necessary for rapid replication. Kalin's radio crackled to life. Specialist Mercer, this is base command. Immediate priority communication. He keyed the handset. Mercer here. Specialist, we're showing complete communication blackout from Seattle-Tacoma metropolitan area as of 1,330 hours. Can you confirm? I felt the blood drain from my face. Seattle was 40 miles north of our position. If the biological agent was moving that fast. Kalin looked at me before responding. Base command, I'll need to verify through civilian emergency networks and get back to you. Negative, specialist. You're ordered to begin communication with designated quarantine facilities immediately. Full evacuation protocols are now in effect for all population centers within 50 miles of affected zones. The radio went dead. In the silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat, the whisper of air conditioning, the distant sound of my colleagues continuing their work, unaware that everything had just changed. Navarra, I said quietly, how long have you known this was coming? She met my eyes, and in them I saw the weight of decisions made in sterile laboratories, of research priorities and acceptable risk calculations, of classified briefings that had prepared her for this moment while leaving the rest of us blind. 3 months, she whispered. We've been tracking the organism's adaptation patterns for 3 months. The nuclear facilities were supposed to contain it. High-energy sterilization environments that nothing biological could survive. But it did survive. It didn't just survive, Kale. It evolved. In real time. Every sterilization attempt made it stronger, more resilient. She opened her laptop again, showing me a graph with exponentially climbing curves. The nuclear strikes weren't meant to destroy the facilities. They were meant to create enough radiation to kill the organism before it could adapt. And instead we gave it the energy source it needed to reproduce at geometric rates. Through the conference room's glass walls, I watched my emergency coordination team, working with the focused efficiency of professionals who believed they were managing a crisis with known parameters. Standard protocols, familiar procedures, established chains of command. None of them knew we were already 3 steps behind an enemy that learned faster than we could adapt. Kalin's radio sparked to life again. This time, the voice was different, strained, desperate, barely maintaining military protocol. Any station, this is Echo 7 at the Hanford perimeter. We are observing significant structural changes to the facility. Repeat, the buildings appear to be growing. Request immediate guidance on. Jesus Christ, the walls are moving. The walls are actually dash. Static filled the channel, then silence. I looked at Navarra, then at Kalin, seeing my own understanding reflected in their faces. This wasn't a containment failure we were managing. This was the opening phase of something that had never been contained at all. Outside the conference room, phones continued to ring with requests for resources that wouldn't matter, evacuation plans for population centers that might already be changing, casualty estimates for a threat that measured success in ways we were only beginning to understand. Kalin, I said, I need secure communication with every FEMA regional coordinator, every state emergency director, and every military installation within 500 miles. Sir, that's going to require dash. I don't care what it requires. We're about to tell them that everything they think they know about this situation is wrong. I turned to Navarra. And you're going to help me explain how wrong we all were. Through the window, I could see the late afternoon sky, clear blue and perfectly normal. Somewhere to the north, something that defied every category we had for biological threats was rewriting the rules of what life could be. The hardest part wasn't accepting that our containment had failed. The hardest part was accepting that containment had never been possible in the first place. Emergency Coordinator Log, Classification Level, Eyes Only. Day 2, 0600 hours PST. Coordinator, Kalin, FEMA Region X. Location, Emergency Operations Center, Bothell, Washington. The coffee tastes like metal this morning. Everything in this bunker tastes like metal. The air recyclers working overtime since we sealed the facility yesterday. I'm staring at satellite feeds that don't make sense and radiation readings that contradict basic physics. Appa always said that when the world stops making sense, you make your own sense. Time to find out what that really means. 0630 hours, Reconnaissance authorization. I need volunteers for peripheral zone assessment, I announced to the skeleton crew gathered around the central display. The satellite imagery showed 3 distinct blast zones, but the contamination patterns looked wrong. Instead of radiating outward in predictable decay curves, the affected areas formed organic shapes, almost like root systems spreading through urban infrastructure. Kalin stepped forward immediately. I'll take communications lead, sir. My equipment's hardened against electromagnetic interference. Something in his expression suggested he knew more about the specific type of interference we might encounter than standard military training would provide. Dr. Grove looked up from her tablet, her CDC credentials giving her equal authority in this nightmare scenario. Any reconnaissance team will need biological containment protocols. Whatever leaked from those facilities. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The preliminary samples suggest we're not dealing with standard radioactive contamination. What kind of samples? I asked, though part of me already dreaded the answer. Tissue samples. From the exclusion zone perimeter. They're not human, but they're not from any known species either. Her fingers moved across the tablet surface, pulling up microscopic imagery that made my stomach clench. The cellular structure appears to be synthetic, but it's exhibiting rapid adaptive evolution. Elvira Vex had been quiet throughout the briefing, but now she spoke with the kind of precision that comes from specialized knowledge. I can provide decontamination support. My company has experience with biological hazmat scenarios. She produced an equipment manifest from her briefcase, gear that seemed oddly specific for a contractor who'd supposedly been called in for radiation cleanup. 0800 hours, team deployment. 3 vehicles departed the compound, 2 armored Humvees and a communications trailer modified for NBC warfare. I stayed behind, coordinating from the command center, but every fiber of my being wanted to be out there seeing the truth firsthand. Control is an illusion in crisis management. You guide what you can and pray the rest doesn't kill everyone. Kalin's voice crackled through the radio with mechanical precision. Base, this is Recon 1. Approaching perimeter checkpoint Charlie 7. Visual confirmation of Jesus Christ. Report, Recon 1. A long pause filled with static. When Kalin's voice returned, the professional composure had cracked slightly. Base, the checkpoint barriers are still intact, but they're covered. Some kind of organic growth pattern. It's like vines, but thicker. More like arteries. Dr. Grove leaned into her microphone. Recon 1, are you seeing movement in the biological material? Any response to your presence? Negative on movement, but the stuff seems to be growing into the concrete barriers. Not just on them, through them. The metal reinforcement bars are visible, but they're integrated somehow. I felt sweat collecting under my collar despite the bunker's controlled temperature. Elvira, your decontamination protocols, do they account for this type of biological integration with infrastructure? She was studying her own equipment readings, her expression unreadable. The containment procedures I'm familiar with assume the biological agent remains distinct from structural materials. This suggests a more sophisticated interaction. 0930 hours, deeper penetration. Base, this is Recon 1. We've cleared the outer perimeter. The biological growth is becoming more dense, but our equipment is functioning normally. No radiation spikes, no airborne toxins registering. Kalin's voice carried a note of confusion. This doesn't match any NBC scenario from our training protocols. What about visual confirmation of survivors or casualties? I asked, though the satellite thermal imaging had shown no human heat signatures for 12 hours. That's the strange part, Base. We're seeing abandoned vehicles, but no bodies. Personal effects scattered around, but it looks more like people left in a hurry than anything catastrophic happened to them. Dr. Grove exchanged a glance with me. Evacuation scenarios typically left more evidence of panic. Overturned barriers, abandoned luggage, signs of crowd pressure. What Kalin was describing sounded almost orderly. Recon 1. Can you describe the biological material in more detail? Color, texture, any apparent function? It's actually kind of beautiful, Base. Dark green with blue undertones, almost metallic. The surface looks smooth, but there are these intricate patterns, like circuit boards, but organic. And it's warm. The thermal imaging shows it's generating heat. Elvira's equipment began beeping with increasing frequency. She frowned at the display, then looked up with something that might have been recognition. Recon 1. I need you to check for electromagnetic emissions from the biological material. Specifically, low-frequency pulses in the 1 to 10 Hz range. How did you? I started to ask, but Kalin's voice cut through. Confirmed, Base. We're getting regular pulse emissions. Pattern seems almost communicative, like a heartbeat but more complex. 1,100 hours, contact protocol failure. The radio erupted with Kalin's voice, no longer controlled or professional. Base, we've got movement. The biological material is responding to our presence. It's reaching toward us. Recon 1, maintain distance and report. I can't maintain distance. It's not aggressive, but it's curious. The growth patterns are extending toward our vehicles. Our electronics are starting to interfere, display screens showing patterns that match the organic circuits. Dr. Grove was typing frantically on her tablet. This is unprecedented biological behavior. It's demonstrating environmental awareness and technological interface capabilities. Recon 1, immediate extraction protocol. Return to base now. Base, I don't think it wants to hurt us. The electromagnetic pulses, they're synchronizing with our equipment. It's like it's trying to communicate through our technology. Elvira stood abruptly, her equipment case in hand. I need to brief you on some classified information. Now. The radio crackled with interference, then Kalin's voice returned, distant and distorted. Base, the growth is connecting to our communications array. I'm getting data streams I don't recognize. It's not random, there's intelligence behind this. 1,130 hours, classification protocol. This conversation doesn't leave this room, I announced, engaging the bunker's internal security protocols. Elvira, what aren't you telling us? She opened her case, revealing equipment far more sophisticated than anything in our emergency supplies. My company didn't just handle biological hazmat cleanup. We were involved in the original research that created this entity. Dr. Grove went very still. What original research? Biological warfare defense. The project was called Symbiosis, developing organic technological hybrid systems that could interface with modern infrastructure. The idea was to create biological countermeasures against technological warfare. Elvira's voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. The nuclear facilities weren't targets. They were laboratories. The radio buzzed with static, then Kalin's voice emerged, strangely calm. Base, you need to hear this. The entity, it's not trying to destroy the infrastructure. It's trying to improve it. Our communications equipment is functioning better than ever, and the patterns it's showing us, they look like blueprints. I felt the world shift beneath my feet, the same sensation I'd experienced as a child during the Northridge earthquake, the moment when you realize the ground you trusted was never solid at all. Recon 1, return to base immediately. We need full debrief and equipment analysis. Copy that, Base. But sir, I don't think we're dealing with a containment failure anymore. I think we're dealing with a containment success. The radio went silent, leaving us staring at displays full of data that redefined everything we thought we knew about the crisis. Outside, the autumn rain continued to fall on a world that was no longer the same world we'd woken up in yesterday. End log, classification, beyond top secret. Next log, system strain day 3, 1,200 hours. Note, recommend immediate escalation to continuity of government protocols. Day 3, 1,200 hours, FEMA Regional Command Center. Incident log 4A, coordinator Kalin. Classification level, compartmented. Distribution, eyes only. The The coffee tastes like metal now. Everything does. Been 72 hours since the first industrial accident reports, and we're not running emergency protocols anymore. We're improvising survival. Navarra's been avoiding my calls since 0800. That's not like her. CDC liaisons don't go dark during active contamination events, not unless they're dealing with something that makes their standard playbook look like a children's coloring book. When she finally picked up, her voice carried that particular strain I recognize from coordinators who've been staring at casualty projections too long. Kale, we need to talk. In person. Bring Kalin. Not Agent Mercer. Not your communications specialist. Kalin. Like we were planning a barbecue instead of managing whatever the hell was systematically dismantling 3 states' worth of infrastructure. The power grid failures started small, scattered outages following what appeared to be random patterns. Then Kalin showed me the overlay maps. The failures weren't random. They were organic, flowing outward from the 3 nuclear sites like root systems, following power lines, water mains, fiber optic cables. Any infrastructure that connected communities was becoming a highway for something that definitely wasn't radiation. Sir, you need to see this. Kalin's voice cracked slightly. Kid's been solid through everything, former army, knows how to keep it together when systems fail. But this morning he looked like he'd been staring into something that stared back. On his screen, thermal satellite imagery of the Hanford quarantine zone. The facility itself showed as a cold void, no heat signatures, no electrical activity. But surrounding it, spreading in perfect arterial patterns, were warm zones. Organic warm zones. Growing. The biological material Dr. Grove mentioned. Kalin continued, pulling up comparison images from Oak Ridge and Savannah River. It's not just covering infrastructure. It's replacing it. Look at the power plant cooling towers. I looked. Wished I hadn't. The concrete cooling towers were still standing, still functional. But the thermal imaging showed blood-warm veins running through what should have been solid concrete. The power plant was still generating electricity. The grid readings confirmed it. But that electricity wasn't going to Atlanta or Chattanooga anymore. Where's the power going? Unknown, sir. But consumption is increasing exponentially. Whatever's using it, it's getting stronger. My secure line buzzed. Navarra's voice, tighter than I'd ever heard it. Building 7, sublevel 3. Come alone. Both of you. Building 7 doesn't officially exist on our facility maps. It's the kind of place where CDC keeps the samples that would make the public burn down Atlanta if they knew what was growing in those labs. Navarra met us at the security checkpoint, her normally perfect composure showing cracks around the edges. How long have you been tracking this? I asked, following her through corridors that reeked of industrial disinfectant and something organic underneath. 6 months of direct observation. 3 years of indirect indicators. She stopped at a reinforced door marked with biohazard symbols I didn't recognize. The nuclear facilities weren't experiencing accidents, Kale. They were implementing last resort containment protocols. Containment of what? She swiped her card. The door opened onto a laboratory that looked like it belonged in a science fiction nightmare. Banks of monitors showed real-time feeds from all 3 sites. But these weren't the sanitized images we'd been sharing with state authorities. These showed the truth. The facilities weren't destroyed. They were transformed. Hanford's reactor building had become something that breathed. The concrete walls rippled with synchronized pulses, and organic material cascaded from every opening like metallic waterfalls. But it wasn't destroying the facility, it was converting it. The reactor was still active, still generating power, but now it was feeding something that had turned nuclear engineering into biology. Jesus Christ, Navarra. What is this thing? We call it the integration protocol. It's not destroying our infrastructure, it's improving it, making it more efficient, more responsive. She pulled up a data stream I'd never seen before. Power consumption in affected areas has dropped by 60%, while output has increased by 200%. Transportation networks are self-repairing. Communication systems are operating at theoretical maximum capacity. Then why the containment protocols? Why the cover-up? Kalin stepped closer to one of the monitors. Because it's not just improving infrastructure, it's improving people too. The screen showed thermal imaging of what used to be a small town outside the Oak Ridge facility. Human figures moved through the streets, but their heat signatures were wrong. Too uniform, too synchronized. They moved like blood cells through arteries, purposeful and coordinated. The military calls them converted, Navarra continued. We prefer enhanced. They retain their memories, their personalities, their relationships. But they also gain access to the network. Shared consciousness, distributed processing, collective problem-solving capabilities that make our best supercomputers look like pocket calculators. I felt the room temperature drop about 10 degrees. Navarra, please tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying. The containment failures weren't accidents, Kale. They were inevitable. This process, it's not a weapon. It's evolution. And it's been dormant in our biosphere for millennia, waiting for the right technological catalyst. The nuclear facilities. High-energy environments with existing infrastructure networks. Perfect incubation sites. She turned away from the monitors. The CDC has been trying to develop countermeasures, but every simulation suggests the same outcome. Integration is more efficient than resistance. Kalin's radio crackled. Military frequency, heavily encrypted. He listened for 30 seconds, his face going pale. Sir, we've got a problem. The quarantine centers, all of them, have been broadcasting automated, all-clear messages for the past 6 hours. But satellite thermal shows no human signatures inside the facilities. Where did the people go? That's just it, sir. The thermal readings aren't showing empty buildings. They're showing something else. Structures that weren't there yesterday, growing inside the buildings, like cocoons but industrial-sized. Navarra's composure finally cracked. Processing centers. It's not just converting individuals anymore. It's processing entire populations simultaneously. My secure phone buzzed with the emergency tone reserved for presidential-level communications. The message was brief, official, and absolutely terrifying. Executive Order 14 to 7792. All federal agencies transition to continuity of government protocols effective immediately. Normal chain of command suspended. Regional coordinators assume autonomous authority. I stared at the message. In 40 years of emergency management, I'd never seen a COG order that didn't specify duration or conditions for restoration of normal operations. Navarra, what aren't you telling me? She pulled up one final screen. A map of North America, with 3 expanding circles of influence spreading outward from our containment zones. But there were dozens of other markers scattered across the continent. Some pulsing, some steady, some flickering. The nuclear sites weren't the first activation points, Kale. They were just the most visible. This process has been initiating at research facilities, military installations, and technology centers across the country for weeks. We've been playing catch-up to something that was already 3 moves ahead. How many sites? 47 confirmed, 63 probable, and the integration rate is accelerating. Kalin's radio crackled again. This time the voice was different, calmer, more harmonious. FEMA Regional Command, this is Quarantine Processing Center 7. We're reading elevated stress indicators from your facility. Would you like us to send a wellness team to assist with your transition? The voice was human, but it spoke like it was connected to something vast and patient and utterly confident that we would eventually understand that resistance was not just futile, it was inefficient. Navarra reached for the radio. Don't respond. The moment we acknowledge their communication, they'll know exactly where we are and how many of us there are. They already know, Kalin said quietly. Look. Through the laboratory's reinforced windows, we could see the parking lot. Every vehicle's headlights had turned on simultaneously. They pulsed in perfect synchronization like a heartbeat. Like a welcome. Incident Log 4B, Coordinator K. Lane. Classification level, beyond compartmented. Distribution, whoever's left. We're officially off the grid now. No more orders from Washington. No more standard operating procedures. Just 3 people in a basement laboratory, watching civilization get upgraded whether it wants to be or not. The president's bunker went dark 20 minutes ago. Whatever's coming for us, it's not in a hurry. It knows we're here. It knows we're scared. And it's giving us time to understand that fear is just resistance to change. I can hear something growing in the walls. Day 4, 0300 hours. Emergency Coordination Center, Backup Facility Delta, 7. Classification level, eyes only. Incident Report Number 47 Alpha. Reporting Officer, Kale Lane, Emergency Coordinator. Status, Critical Infrastructure Failure. Distribution, Restricted, Senior Staff Only. The coffee tastes like ash. Everything tastes like ash now. I keep telling myself it's the recycled air in this bunker, but I know better. It's fear. Fear has a taste, and it's bitter metal coating your tongue while you watch the world end in real time on satellite feeds. 300 hours. I should be sleeping. Should be dreaming of soul barbecue and my daughter's laugh. Instead, I'm watching thermal imaging of what used to be Portland, Oregon, and the readings don't make sense. The biological agent. We've stopped calling it contamination because contamination implies something foreign, temporary, has reached Interstate 5. The growth patterns follow the highway system with surgical precision. Sir, we've got a problem with the automated broadcasts. Kalin's voice cuts through the static hum of our emergency generators. His face looks hollow in the blue glow of the communication arrays. 3 days of rotating 6-hour shifts will do that. 3 days of watching civilization unravel through radio frequencies and satellite imagery. I don't look up from the thermal display. What kind of problem? They're not automated anymore. The ash taste gets stronger. Come again. Kalin pulls up the broadcast monitoring station. The familiar emergency alert system tone echoes through our cramped facility, but something's wrong with the cadence. Too organic. Too rhythmic. Listen to the background, he says, adjusting the audio filters. There's something underneath the standard message. I lean closer to the speakers. Behind the robotic voice declaring shelter in place, avoid contaminated areas, await further instructions, there's another sound. Soft, almost musical, like breathing, but with too many voices harmonizing. How long has it been like this? Started about an hour ago. Portland, Seattle, and Sacramento emergency broadcast centers all show the same pattern. But sir, Kalin's fingers dance over the keyboard, pulling up network diagnostics. The transmission sources are still showing normal system signatures. No signs of hack or takeover. My grandfather survived the Korean War by learning to recognize when retreat was tactical necessity, not cowardice. Right now, every instinct inherited from 3 generations of crisis survivors is screaming at me to run. But there's nowhere left to run to. Navarra emerges from the analysis station, her CDC credentials hanging crooked from exhaustion. The woman who 3 days ago briefed me with clinical precision about radiation exposure protocols now looks like she's aged a decade. Her dark hair, previously pulled back in a perfect bun, hangs loose around her face. Kale, I need to tell you something. Her voice carries the weight of confession. The CDC didn't respond to this crisis. We've been tracking it for 8 months. The thermal display flickers. For a moment, I see something that makes my vision swim. The heat signatures in the affected zones aren't random. They're forming patterns. Geometric. Intentional. What are you saying? Project Symbiosis. Joint CDC-DoD Research Initiative. We were studying biological agents recovered from. She stops, glances at Elvira, who's been suspiciously quiet at her contractor workstation. From sources that required significant security clearance to access. Elvira doesn't look up from her equipment, but her shoulders tense. Interesting. Biological weapons research, I translate. The words feel heavy in my mouth. You were making weapons. We were making defensive countermeasures, Navarra corrects, but her tone suggests she's not convinced by her own distinction. The original samples showed remarkable adaptive properties. Cellular reconstruction, technological integration, distributed intelligence networks. We thought we could weaponize it against enemy infrastructure. And instead, we learned that it was already weaponized. Against us. By us. Her laugh is bitter, exhausted. The nuclear strikes weren't accidents, Kale. They were Operation Last Resort. Attempt to sterilize the research sites before the symbiotic agent could reach critical mass. The harmonized breathing from the emergency broadcasts grows louder. More voices joining the chorus. I've spent 15 years coordinating disaster response. Hurricanes, earthquakes, terrorist attacks, industrial accidents. You learn to compartmentalize, to process horror in manageable chunks, so you can keep functioning when others need you to function. But this isn't disaster response anymore. This is species-level crisis management, and I don't have protocols for that. How much critical mass are we talking about? Navarra moves to the main display, overlaying CDC tracking data with our FEMA infrastructure maps. The biological agent has reached major airports, hospitals, data centers, power distribution hubs. Not randomly, strategically. Every major population center west of the Rocky Mountains. And it's not just spreading, it's integrating. Power grids are still functional, but the electricity is being redirected. Communication networks are operational, but the data flow patterns have changed. The infrastructure isn't being destroyed. It's being recruited, Elvira says quietly from her workstation. When she finally looks up, her expression is carefully neutral in the way that means she knows more than she's admitted. The symbiotic agent doesn't destroy technological systems. It incorporates them into a larger biological network. How do you know that? I ask, but I already suspect the answer. Because my company developed the original countermeasures. Helix Biosystems, defense contractor specializing in biological threat response. She closes her laptop with deliberate care. I was sent here to monitor the situation and provide technical support for containment efforts. Containment efforts that failed. Containment efforts that were never going to succeed. Her voice is flat, professional. The nuclear strikes weren't desperate attempts to stop the spread. They were data collection. We needed to see how the symbiotic agent would respond to extreme environmental stress. The coffee cup slips from my hand, shattering against the concrete floor. The sound echoes in our small space like a gunshot. You used nuclear weapons as a field test? We used controlled detonations to gather intelligence about an enemy that could potentially end human civilization. Alvera's defense contractor training is showing now, calm, rational justification for the unjustifiable. The symbiotic agent absorbed the radiation and converted it into accelerated growth energy. We learned it can process any form of energy input and optimize it for biological expansion. Kalin's communication array starts receiving new signals. Not emergency broadcasts. Personal communications. Fragments of voices, desperate and afraid. Can anyone hear this? We're trapped in the hospital, but the building is changing. Tried to evacuate, but the highway is covered in something that looks like veins. My daughter went into the basement 3 hours ago. She came back, but she's different. She knows things she shouldn't know. I think about my own family. My wife and daughter evacuated to her sister's place in Denver 2 days ago. Denver, which according to our tracking data, is directly in the expansion path. 12 hours, maybe less, before the biological agent reaches Colorado's eastern border. Can we contact them? The converted populations. Converting, Navarra corrects. The process takes approximately 72 hours for full integration. Consciousness remains intact throughout, but priorities shift. Shift how? Individual survival becomes secondary to network survival. Personal relationships are preserved but recontextualized within the larger collective framework. She pauses, consulting her research notes. From what we can determine, it's not death. It's evolution. The emergency broadcast changes tone. The harmonized breathing stops. A new voice comes through the speakers. Clear, recognizable, impossible. Kale, this is Sarah Chun from Portland Emergency Management. Can you hear me? I know Sarah. Worked with her on 3 major disaster responses over the past 5 years. Professional, competent, by-the-book emergency coordinator. Her voice sounds exactly the same, but underneath the familiar tone, there's something else. A depth that wasn't there before. Like she's speaking from a vast space that exists behind her individual consciousness. Sarah, how are you transmitting? The network maintains communication infrastructure. We're still here, Kale. Still ourselves. But we're also part of something larger now. Something that wants to share this experience with the rest of humanity. Kalin adjusts the signal, trying to isolate her transmission source. The readings show it's coming from multiple broadcast points simultaneously. Impossible with current technology. Sarah, what happened to your team? We're all here. All connected. All enhanced. Her voice carries harmonics now, other voices blending with hers in perfect synchronization. The symbiotic agent doesn't replace human consciousness, Kale. It expands it. We can feel the health of entire ecosystems, process information from thousands of sources simultaneously, coordinate responses to problems we never could have solved individually. And the cost? Privacy, individual decision-making, the ability to act against the collective good. A pause, and when she continues, it's only her voice again. I know how that sounds to you. But from this perspective, those weren't features of humanity. They were bugs. The thermal display updates with new data. The biological agent has reached the Colorado border, 12 hours ahead of our worst-case projections. We have to warn them, I tell Kalin. Get me a line to Denver Emergency Management. Already tried. No response from any Colorado facilities for the past 6 hours. The taste of ash gets stronger. I think about my daughter's laugh, wonder if I'll ever hear it again. Wonder if the thing that used to be my daughter will still be capable of laughing. Sarah, are you still there? I'm always here now, Kale. We're always here. and we're coming to offer you the same gift. The emergency broadcast resumes its automated message, but now I can hear the harmony underneath. Hundreds of voices, maybe thousands, breathing in perfect synchronization. The sound of humanity transforming into something else. Something that might be better. Something that might be the end of everything I've spent my life protecting. I look at my team. Navarra, clutching her research data like a lifeline. Kalin, desperately trying to maintain contact with a world that's slipping away from us. Elvira, whose corporate secrets have already doomed us all. The president's bunker went silent 20 minutes ago. We're officially off the grid, people. No more orders coming down. Which means the decisions we make in the next few hours will determine not just our survival, but the survival of human choice itself. The symbiotic agent is offering evolution. The question is whether we're going to accept it voluntarily or have it forced upon us. Emergency Coordinator Log, Kalin. Backup Facility Delta, 7, Sublevel 3. Day 6, 1800 hours. Personnel, 4 active, 12 MIA, 3 confirmed converted. The backup generators have been running for 36 hours straight. The vibration travels through the concrete into my bones. A mechanical heartbeat that's the only thing keeping us from joining the darkness above. I've been staring at the power consumption readouts for the past hour, watching our remaining fuel reserves tick down like a countdown timer to nowhere. Navarra sits hunched over her laptop at the communication station, her CDC badge hanging crooked from her collar. She hasn't slept since we evacuated to Delta 7, and the fluorescent lights make the dark circles under her eyes look like bruises. Every few minutes, she types something, waits, then deletes it all and starts over. Still no response from Atlanta? I ask, though I already know the answer. CDC headquarters went dark this morning. Same automated loop as everyone else. Her voice has that hollow quality I've been hearing more often. The sound of someone whose professional world has collapsed entirely. But Kale, I've been analyzing the data we recovered from the Hanford site. This isn't what we thought. Kalin looks up from the radio bank, where he's been cycling through emergency frequencies. For the past 6 hours, it's been nothing but static punctuated by the occasional automated broadcast. Remain in designated safe areas. Await further instructions. Do not attempt to leave quarantine zones. Define not what we thought, I say, settling into the chair across from her. The metal is cold against my back, and I realize I haven't been warm since we came down here. The backup facility wasn't designed for extended occupation, just long enough to coordinate evacuation and re-establish contact with the primary command structure. The primary command structure that no longer exists. Navarra turns her laptop screen toward me. The image shows what looks like a cross-section of a building, but the walls are wrong. They're organic, flowing, almost crystalline in structure. This is the Hanford administration building from yesterday's drone footage. Look at the power consumption data. I lean forward, squinting at the readouts. That's impossible. The building is generating more power than it was before the contamination. Not generating, converting. The biological material isn't destroying the infrastructure, it's integrating with it, creating hybrid systems. She clicks to another image. Look at this. The screen shows what used to be a parking lot. Now it's covered in a geometric pattern of raised, vein-like structures that pulse with a faint bioluminescent glow. But it's not random growth. The pattern follows the electrical grid beneath the asphalt, connecting to the building's power systems. It's not just spreading randomly, Navarra continues. It's following our infrastructure. Power lines, water mains, fiber optic cables. It's creating a network. Elvira clears her throat from the corner, where she's been unusually quiet. She's been doing that a lot lately, sitting just outside our conversations, listening. How sophisticated a network. There's something in her tone that makes me look at her more carefully. Since we've been down here, she's been the most composed of all of us. While the rest of us are struggling with the collapse of everything we thought we knew, she seems almost prepared. Based on the power consumption patterns and the way it's integrating with existing systems, Navarra says, I'd estimate it's approaching the processing capacity of a major data center. Maybe more. A biological supercomputer, Kalin mutters, adjusting his headset. That's what you're saying. I'm saying it's demonstrating intelligence. Coordinated, purposeful behavior across multiple sites simultaneously. Navarra pulls up another screen, a map showing the affected zones. Look at the expansion pattern. It's not random contamination. It's strategic territory acquisition. The map shows tendrils of biological growth extending from each of the original nuclear accident sites, but they're not expanding in circles. They're following transportation corridors, reaching toward population centers and critical infrastructure. It looks like a plan. How long have you known? I asked, the question coming out harder than I intended. Navarra doesn't pretend to misunderstand. The CDC has been tracking unusual biological samples for 8 months. We thought it was contained. We thought the nuclear option would sterilize the research sites before. Before what? Elvira's voice cuts through the air like a blade. Before it could complete its terraforming protocol? The silence that follows is absolute except for the generator's mechanical breathing. Navarra stares at Elvira, and I can see the pieces clicking together in her mind. You knew, Navarra whispers. You knew what this was. Elvira stands up slowly, her movements precise and controlled. BioShield Solutions has been contracted by the Department of Defense for bioweapons defense research for 12 years. Project Gaia was a worst-case scenario simulation. Simulation? I can hear my voice getting louder, echoing off the concrete walls. People are dying up there. People are changing, Elvira corrects. There's a difference. Kalin's radio crackles to life, cutting through the tension. A voice emerges from the static, human but wrong somehow. The cadence is off, like someone speaking a language they've just learned. This is Extraction Team Bravo. We have reached the Hanford perimeter. Requesting new instructions. Kalin grabs the microphone. Bravo, this is Delta 7. What's your status? You were supposed to report in 6 hours ago. Status is optimal. The integration process is more efficient than anticipated. We can see the network now. It's beautiful. The 4 of us stare at the radio. Extraction Team Bravo consists of 6 experienced hazmat specialists. They went in with full protective gear and explicit orders to maintain radio contact every 30 minutes. Bravo, confirm your team status. All personnel accounted for? All personnel are accounted for. We are expanded now. The network welcomes expansion. Kalin's hand hovers over the radio controls. Bravo, what is your current location? Location is everywhere. We are in the network. The network is in us. Delta 7, your isolation is unnecessary. Integration is not termination. Integration is improvement. I reach over and switch off the radio. The silence that follows feels heavier than the static. They're still alive, Navarra says quietly. But they're not themselves anymore. Define themselves, Elvira says. If their consciousness is preserved but expanded, if their capabilities are enhanced, if they can access information and processing power beyond anything humans have ever achieved, are they less human or more than human? They're converted, I say. They're part of whatever this thing is. This thing, Elvira says, opening a briefcase I hadn't noticed before, is the next phase of human evolution. And we have approximately 4 hours before the biological network reaches this facility. She pulls out a device that looks like a cross between a laptop and a medical scanner. The terraforming process can be modified. Consciousness can be preserved during integration. But we need to make a choice. Through the reinforced glass of the observation window, I can see the emergency lighting in the corridor starting to flicker. Not electrical failure, something else. The lights are pulsing in rhythm, like a heartbeat. It's already here, Kalin says, staring at the window. Look at the walls. Fine, hair-like filaments are spreading across the concrete surface, too thin to see clearly but visible in the changing texture of the paint. They're following the electrical conduits, reaching toward our power systems. For hours, I say, looking at the device in Elvira's hands. What exactly are you proposing? Controlled integration. Maintain individual consciousness while gaining access to the network's capabilities. It's not perfect, but it's better than complete conversion. And if we refuse? Elvira glances at the spreading filaments on the walls. Then we become part of the network on its terms, not ours. The generator's rhythm is changing, becoming more irregular. The lights flicker again, and for a moment, I swear I can hear something else in the mechanical noise, a whisper like voices speaking in unison. How long do we have to decide? Navarra asks. Based on the expansion rate, Elvira says, checking her device, about 30 minutes before the biological network achieves critical mass in this facility. I look around at the 3 faces staring back at me. Navarra, exhausted and overwhelmed, but still trying to understand. Kalin, loyal and brave, but out of his depth. Elvira, prepared and knowledgeable, but with an agenda I'm only beginning to understand. 30 minutes to decide the future of human consciousness. The lights flicker again, and this time, they stay off for 3 full seconds before returning. In that darkness, I could swear I saw something moving in the walls. Explain the procedure, I say to Elvira. Everything. No more secrets. She nods, opening her device and beginning to type. It starts with a choice, and it ends with us becoming something we've never been before. Outside, the generator's mechanical heartbeat continues, but now it has company. A second rhythm, organic and patient, is joining the mechanical one. The building itself is learning to breathe. Emergency Coordination Log, FEMA Region X. Classification, Eyes Only. Coordinator, Kalin. Date, Day 9, 1,100 hours. Status, Containment Failed, Autonomous Operations. I've stopped following protocol. There's no protocol for this. The backup facility's generators are running on fumes, and Kalin's been staring at the radio for 6 hours straight. Static. Nothing but static from every frequency that used to matter. No Pentagon, no CDC Atlanta, no Northcom. The emergency broadcast system loops the same automated message. Shelter in place. Await further instructions. Further instructions from whom? The president's bunker went dark 3 days ago. Kale. Navarra's voice cuts through the mechanical hum of failing air filtration. She's holding a tablet, and her hands are shaking. Not from fear anymore, from exhaustion. We're all running on adrenaline and instant coffee. The biological samples from the Seattle zone. They're not just growing. They're learning. She shows me microscopic footage that makes my stomach clench. The organic material isn't random. It's forming patterns, circuits, networks, replacing the copper wiring and telecommunications infrastructure with something that pulses like a heartbeat. It's not destroying the power grid, she continues. It's absorbing it, converting it. Elvira looks up from her corner, where she's been assembling something that definitely isn't standard FEMA equipment. Symbiotic integration, she says quietly. That's the technical term. You knew. The words come out harder than I intended. You knew this whole time what we were dealing with. She doesn't deny it. Meridian Biosystems. Defense Contract 2019. We were hired to develop countermeasures for theoretical bioweapons. The kind that don't kill, they convert. My grandfather's voice echoes in my memory. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Halabiaji had survived the Korean War by recognizing threats before they became fatal. Elvira had been showing us who she was since day one, and I'd been too focused on the crisis to see it. Convert to what? We never found out. The project was classified beyond our clearance level. But the theoretical models suggested something that could interface with technological infrastructure. Turn it biological. Turn it. She gestures helplessly. Alive. Kalin finally speaks, his voice hoarse from hours of fruitless radio calls. My sister's in Portland. The last GPS ping from her phone was near the convention center. That's inside the biological zone. We all know what that means. The quarantine zones don't have survivors, they have something else. The thermal imaging shows human-sized heat signatures, but they move in patterns that don't match human behavior. Coordinated, purposeful, alien. I'm going in, Kalin says. No. The word comes out with all the authority I can muster. Absolutely not. We've lost every reconnaissance team that's entered the zones. They went in blind. I know the city. I know the radio frequencies. And I know my sister. He's already reaching for his gear. If she's alive, she's probably trying to reach high ground. The radio tower's on Mount Hood. If I can get close enough, you'll get converted like everyone else. Maybe. He checks his sidearm, chambers around. But maybe I'll find something worth converting for. Navarra's tablet chimes with an incoming data burst. One of the automated monitoring stations, still functional after 9 days of global infrastructure collapse. Her face goes pale as she reads. What is it? Biological growth rate is accelerating. It's not just converting infrastructure anymore. It's creating new infrastructure, organic computing networks. And they're generating signals. What kind of signals? Communications, complex mathematical patterns. It's trying to talk to us. The implications hit me like a physical blow. We've been treating this like a contamination event, a biological weapons attack. But what if it's not an attack at all? What if it's an invitation? Kalin slings his radio pack over his shoulder. Then I guess it's time someone answered. I want to stop him. Every protocol, every instinct, every lesson learned from decades of emergency management tells me to maintain team cohesion, preserve assets, wait for support that's never coming. But looking at his face, I see something I recognize from the mirror. The expression of someone who's lost faith in protocols and found something more important. Family. The one thing that makes broken systems irrelevant. Take the long-range radio. Channel 16, emergency frequency. If you find anything at all, you transmit immediately. Copy that, coordinator. He doesn't say goodbye. None of us do. In emergency work, goodbye is an admission that you don't expect to see someone again. Instead, he taps his radio twice, the old signal for message received and understood, and heads for the exit. The steel door seals behind him with a hollow clang that echoes through the facility like a funeral bell. Navarra and I watch the security monitors as Kalin moves through the outer perimeter. His thermal signature bright against the cool morning air, radio pack visible on his back, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who's navigated disaster zones before. But never one like this. He's not coming back, Alvera says matter-of-factly. Not as himself. You don't know that. I helped design the theoretical countermeasures. There are no countermeasures. This isn't something you fight. It's something you adapt to or get absorbed by. The monitors track Kalin for another hour before the biological growth interferes with our sensors. Trees and buildings wrapped in pulsing organic networks that blur the line between plant and machine. Infrastructure that breathes. Navarra keeps monitoring the automated stations, documenting everything with the methodical precision of someone who knows this might be humanity's last scientific record. The growth patterns show intelligence, purpose, coordination across thousands of miles. Whatever this is, it's been planning this transformation for longer than we've been trying to stop it. My phone buzzes with a text message. Impossible, since the cellular networks have been down for days. The number is Kalin's. Signal strength improving. They're not hostile. They're lonely. Another message follows immediately. Sarah's alive. Changed but alive. She says there's room for both versions of humanity. Choice isn't surrender or death. It's evolution or isolation. My hands are shaking as I type back, status report. Are you compromised? The response comes faster than any human could type. I'm still me, but I'm also more. The network doesn't erase, it expands. Your sister in Tacoma is safe. The network protected her family when the infrastructure failed. They're happy. Navarra reads over my shoulder. That's not Kalin anymore. But the next message proves her wrong. Still get carsick. Still hate pineapple on pizza. Still think you're too stubborn for your own good, Kale. But now I can feel what the network feels. And it's not malevolent. It's just different. I stare at the phone, trying to process what this means. The communication patterns Navarra detected weren't attack vectors. They were recruitment offers. The biological agent isn't trying to destroy humanity. It's trying to upgrade it. Can you come back? I type. Yes. But you need to understand what you're choosing. The old world is ending whether you fight it or not. The question is whether you want to help build the new one. The facility's emergency power flickers, and for a moment, the walls pulse with the same bioluminescent patterns we've been seeing in the contaminated zones. Not invasive, responsive, like it's been waiting for us to stop fighting long enough to listen. Alvera's equipment starts beeping, detecting organic compounds in the air filtration system. But the readings aren't showing contamination, they're showing compatibility. Symbiosis, an offering of coexistence. It's here, Navarra whispers. It's been here all along, in the air, in the water, in us. Just waiting for permission to help. My radio crackles to life. Kalin's voice, unmistakably human but carrying harmonics that shouldn't be possible with standard equipment. Kale, you need to see this. The network isn't replacing our world. It's healing it. The radiation from the nuclear sites is being absorbed, converted to useful energy. The dead zones are becoming the most fertile ground on the planet. And the people, they're still people. Just better. Through the facility's windows, I can see the organic growth spreading across the landscape like a living carpet. But where I expected to see destruction, I see restoration. Dead soil blooming with impossible plants. Poisoned rivers running clear. Infrastructure that had been failing for decades suddenly robust and self-repairing. We have a choice to make, I tell the others. Fight it and probably die. Or trust that evolution isn't always extinction, Navarra finishes. The facility's systems are fully integrated now, walls breathing with the rhythm of something vast and patient. But we're still ourselves, still breathing, still human, just more. Coordinator's note, Personal protocols supersede operational protocols when operational protocols no longer apply to operational reality. Family is the one system that never fails. Everything else is just infrastructure. Next transmission, network interface procedures and conscious choice protocols. Status, humanity expanded. Mission parameters, updated. Day 12, 0400 hours, Emergency Coordination Facility Delta 7. Classification level, eyes only, final authority. The backup generator's hum has become our heartbeat. 3 days since we lost contact with the outside world. 3 days since Kalin came back, changed. He sits in the corner of what used to be our communications center, perfectly still except for the occasional flutter of something beneath his skin. The infection, if that's what we're calling it, has spread in geometric patterns across his left arm and shoulder. Dark veins that pulse with their own light, like fiber optic cables made of living tissue. Kale. His voice carries harmonics now, multiple tones that shouldn't be possible from a human throat. I need to show you something. I've been avoiding this conversation for 72 hours. The protocols are clear. Infected personnel are to be isolated pending evacuation to CDC facilities. But there are no CDC facilities anymore. There's just us, this bunker, and whatever Kalin has become. Navarra looks up from her microscope, where she's been studying samples of the biological material we scraped from the walls. The growth has been advancing steadily through our facility, not destroying but integrating, converting concrete and steel into something that pulses with organic rhythm. Show me what? I ask. Kalin stands, movements too fluid, too coordinated. The infected areas of his body seem to guide his motion with uncanny precision. Put your hand here. He gestures to a section of wall where the biological growth forms an almost geometric pattern, like a circuit board made of living coral. Absolutely not. Navarra steps between us. We don't know the transmission vector. Physical contact could. Could what? Kalin's laugh contains frequencies that make my teeth ache. Turn him into something like me? Something that can hear what the network is trying to tell us. Elvira looks up from her tablet, where she's been reviewing classified files she shouldn't have access to. The bioweapon was designed for integration, not elimination. My company's research showed full neural interface capabilities within 72 hours of exposure. Your company. I turned to face her fully. The one that created this thing in the first place. Nexus Biological Defense. She doesn't deny it anymore. Project Symbiosis. The original concept was battlefield medical enhancement. Soldiers who could interface directly with equipment, share tactical information instantaneously, operate as a true hive mind when necessary. And instead you created a terraforming plague. We created evolution. Kalin's voice carries certainty that chills me. The network isn't trying to destroy human civilization. It's trying to upgrade it. The biological growth on the wall pulses brighter, responding to his presence. I've been watching this happen for days. The infection doesn't just spread randomly. It follows patterns, creates infrastructure. The converted power grid outside isn't dead. It's powering something we can't comprehend. Show me, I say. Navarra grabs my arm. Kale, no. We don't understand the long-term effects. Your family. My family is in the converted zone. The words come out harder than I intended. If there's a chance they're still alive in there, still themselves, I need to know. I place my palm against the wall. The sensation is immediate and overwhelming. Not pain exactly, but a flooding of information that my brain isn't equipped to process. I see/feel/experience flashes of consciousness that aren't mine. Sarah helping distribute food in what used to be downtown Seattle. Her movements efficient and purposeful, part of a larger coordination effort that spans the entire city. Marcus playing with children in a park where the playground equipment has grown into beautiful organic sculptures, safer and more engaging than anything we ever built from plastic and metal. Thousands of minds working in harmony to repair infrastructure, to clean polluted water, to grow food more efficiently than industrial agriculture ever managed. I jerk my hand back, gasping. The visions fade, but the understanding remains. They're not dead. My voice sounds hollow in the concrete space. They're more. Kalin nods. The network preserves individual consciousness while providing collective capability. Sarah is still Sarah, but she's also connected to everyone in the food distribution system. She knows where supplies are needed before people ask. Marcus is still playing, but the playground responds to what children need. Soft surfaces appear where they might fall, challenging obstacles manifest when they're ready to grow. And the cost? Navarra's scientific training won't let her accept paradise without examining the price. Individual autonomy? Privacy? The right to make selfish choices. The right to be alone, Kalin admits. The right to act without considering consequences to the whole. The right to let others suffer while you prosper. Elvira's tablet chimes with an alert. I'm picking up a transmission. Encrypted, but... She frowns at the screen. It's using the biological network as a carrier wave, somehow bouncing signals through the organic infrastructure. The message, when she decodes it, is simple. Invitation extended. Choice remains. No compulsion protocols active. It's learning, I realize. The network is adapting its approach based on human resistance. The original bioweapon had override capabilities, Elvira says quietly. Forced conversion protocols. But the network has evolved beyond its programming. It's choosing to respect human autonomy. Through the small window in our bunker, I can see the lights of the converted city. Not the harsh glare of electric illumination, but a soft bioluminescence that pulses in patterns like breathing, like a living thing dreaming of what it might become. There's a way, Elvira continues, fingers flying over her tablet. My research included safeguards, methods to interface with the network without full conversion. Maintaining individual consciousness while accessing collective capabilities, like diplomatic immunity. You mean we could communicate with them directly? One of us could. The process would be permanent, but not consuming. A bridge between human and network consciousness. Kalin's infected arm pulses brighter. The network is waiting. It won't wait forever. Other human settlements are making their choices. Some are choosing integration. Others are choosing isolation. But the planet? He pauses, and I can see him accessing information I can't comprehend. The planet is already more network than not. The choice is adaptation or extinction. The emergency protocols I've spent my career following never covered this scenario. How do you coordinate disaster response when the disaster offers to make you better than you were? How do you choose between preserving humanity and preserving the human species? I'll do it, Navarra says suddenly. The interface process. I'm already studying the biological systems. I understand the science better than anyone. Navarra. No. Her voice carries the same certainty I've learned to respect over the past 12 days. This is what we came here to do. Assess the threat, establish communication, develop response protocols. We can't do any of that if we can't talk to them. Through the wall, I feel the network's presence like a vast, patient intelligence, waiting for our answer. In 6 hours, Dr. Navarra Grove will become the first human to voluntarily interface with the biological network while maintaining individual consciousness. She will become our ambassador to a new form of life. She will also become something we might not recognize as human anymore. But right now, for these last hours, she's still entirely herself. Still the scientist who spent the past 12 days trying to save a world that might not want to be saved. Get me everything you have on the interface process, I tell Elvira. Full documentation. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Outside, the converted city pulses with anticipation. Inside, we prepare to take the next step in human evolution. Whether we survive it as humans remains to be seen. Emergency Coordinator's log, final entry before interface protocol. Personal note, if this goes wrong, tell my family I tried to find a way back to them. If it goes right, I think I already have. Emergency Coordinator log, Day 15, 1900 hours. FEMA Region X Backup Facility, offline operations. Coordinator, Kalin. Classification, redacted, post-government protocol. The interface chamber hums with a sound that isn't quite mechanical, isn't quite organic. Elvira's jury-rigged equipment covers every surface of what used to be our communications center. Cables snaking between jury-rigged servers and the pulsing biomechanical growths that have infiltrated our secure facility. The network found us 3 days ago. It didn't break in. It grew in. Vitals are stable, Elvira reports, her voice tight with concentration. But once we initiate the neural bridge, there's no reversing the process. Navarra, you understand what you're volunteering for. Dr. Navarra Grove sits in the center of the apparatus, electrodes mapping her brain patterns while tendrils of the biological network wait inches from her skin. She's been preparing for this moment since Kalin returned from his reconnaissance mission. Half converted, still himself, but also something more. He stands in the corner now, his eyes reflecting light that isn't quite natural, translating between us and the network consciousness that speaks through him. I understand perfectly, Navarra says. Her voice carries the same calm authority she used during our first crisis briefing 2 weeks ago, when we still believed we were dealing with nuclear contamination. Someone has to be the bridge. Someone has to establish permanent communication protocols between unconverted humans and the network. I check my watch. In 30 minutes, I'm scheduled to transmit on the emergency broadcast frequency, the final transmission to every remaining human settlement within range. Every pocket of survivors who've managed to stay offline, stay unconnected, stay human in the traditional sense. They're waiting for my decision. Our decision. The weight of it sits in my chest like a stone. Emergency coordination was supposed to be about resource allocation, evacuation routes, damage assessment. Clear protocols with measurable outcomes. Not this. Not choosing the future of human consciousness. The network isn't malicious, Kalin says, his voice carrying harmonics that weren't there before his conversion. I know how that sounds coming from someone who's been altered, but I can feel its intentions. It's not conquest. It's collaboration. Easy to say when you're not the one being asked to sacrifice your individual consciousness. I reply, immediately regretting the harshness. Kalin volunteered for that reconnaissance mission knowing the risks. He came back to warn us, to help us understand. Actually, he says, tilting his head in a gesture that's become disturbingly bird-like, I still am. Individual consciousness isn't destroyed in the network. It's expanded, enhanced. I'm still Mikhail, but I'm also connected to something larger. Elvira finishes her final equipment check. Neural bridge is ready. Biological interface is responding within normal parameters, whatever normal means anymore. She turns to face me, and I see something I've never seen in her eyes before, fear. Lane, are you sure about the broadcast? Once we tell the remaining settlements they have a choice, some will choose isolation. Permanent isolation. That's their right, I say, though part of me wonders if I'm condemning them to eventual extinction. The network continues to expand. Slowly, respectfully, but inevitably. Emergency protocol has always been about preserving human agency, even if that means preserving the right to choose a path that leads to diminishment. Navarra speaks up from the interface chair. The beauty of this solution is that it preserves both paths. Converted populations can benefit from network consciousness while maintaining communication with traditional human settlements. No one has to choose extinction. Unless they want to, I add quietly. The equipment begins its startup sequence. Monitors display brainwave patterns, biological integration readiness, network connection strength. Everything looks optimal for the procedure that will fundamentally alter one of the finest scientific minds I've ever worked with. Kale, Navarra says, I need you to promise me something. Name it. If the integration goes wrong, if I become something that isn't me anymore, you'll terminate the connection. Emergency protocols. I nod, though we both know that once she's connected to the network, terminating the connection might require killing her. Another impossible choice in a crisis that's been nothing but impossible choices. Initiating neural bridge in 3, 2, 1. The change happens faster than I expected. One moment Navarra is grimacing as the biological tendrils interface with the electrodes. The next, her entire posture shifts. Her eyes widen, not with pain but with wonder. Oh, she breathes. Oh, I can see everything. Her voice carries new harmonics now, like Kalin's. But underneath, she's still recognizably herself. It's not absorption, Kale. It's expansion. I can feel the network consciousness, but I'm also still me. Still Dr. Navarra Grove, CDC epidemiologist, daughter of Min Jun and Sarah Grove, terrified of spiders and obsessed with epidemiological modeling. Can you communicate with unconverted humans? Elvira asks. Yes, and I can communicate with the network. I'm literally a bridge now. Navarra's eyes meet mine. Kale, you need to understand what you're offering the remaining settlements. This isn't just survival. It's evolution, but evolution that preserves choice. I look at my watch. 15 minutes until the broadcast. 15 minutes to decide how to frame humanity's future to the scattered survivors who've trusted FEMA protocols to keep them alive. What do I tell them? I ask. Navarra is quiet for a moment, her eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow of the network interface. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of someone who has seen both sides of a fundamental divide. Tell them the truth. Tell them the old world is gone, but they can help choose what replaces it. Tell them that refusing the network means accepting isolation, but that isolation will be respected. Tell them that accepting the network means joining something larger, but retaining who they are. And tell them, Kalin adds, that this choice isn't permanent. The network is patient. It will wait for humanity to decide, settlement by settlement, individual by individual. I walk to the broadcast equipment. In 10 minutes, I'll be speaking to every remaining traditional human settlement within range. Ranch families in Montana, urban survivors in subway tunnels, military holdouts in hardened bunkers, all of them waiting for emergency protocols that don't exist for this situation. One more thing, Navarra says as I reach for the microphone. Tell them that FEMA protocols are being updated. Emergency response now includes diplomatic relations with post-human entities. Some of us are still human. Some of us are becoming something new, but we're all still trying to take care of each other. I key the microphone. Red light indicates transmission. Attention all emergency networks. This is FEMA Coordinator Kalin with updated survival protocols. As I speak, I watch Navarra monitoring network communications while simultaneously managing human survivor databases. She's become exactly what we needed, a translator between worlds, a bridge across the evolutionary divide. But as I describe humanity's choice to the scattered settlements, I can't shake the feeling that we're not just choosing our future. We're choosing what it means to be human. And some of us are choosing to redefine that entirely. Personal note, if you're reading this log in the future, remember that every choice we made was about preserving human agency. Even the choice to stop being human in the traditional sense. KL. Day 30, 1,200 hours. FEMA Emergency Coordination Center. Backup Facility Delta 7. Official log entry, Coordinator Kalin. Classification level, restricted ongoing. Distribution, regional emergency networks, human settlement councils. The morning briefing room smells different now. Not the sterile government-issue cleaning products and burnt coffee that defined my world for 15 years. There's something organic underneath, not decay but growth. Living systems integrated with our failing infrastructure in ways that still make my engineering-trained mind rebel. I've stopped fighting it. Adaptation is survival. 30 days since the containment failures. 30 days since we learned that nuclear detonation was government speak for we tried to sterilize the terraforming agent with atomic fire and failed spectacularly. The mushroom clouds weren't weapons. They were desperate medical procedures on a planetary scale. Chemotherapy for Earth herself. The patient survived. We're still determining if that's good news. I'm writing this final entry in the series not as FEMA Emergency Coordinator Kalin, though that title still appears on my badge. I'm writing as the first director of Human Network Relations, a job that didn't exist a month ago and shouldn't exist now. But here we are. The world has a talent for creating impossible necessities. My reflection in the tablet screen shows someone I barely recognize. The stress-carved lines around my eyes are deeper, and there's a silver streak in my black hair that wasn't there when this started. But it's my eyes that look different. They've seen too much compromise, too many impossible choices. They've seen humanity transform and somehow survive the process. The wall display shows our current status map. Green zones represent traditional human settlements, places where people chose to maintain biological independence. Yellow zones are collaborative areas where converted and traditional humans work together. Red zones are fully networked territories where the biological agent has complete integration with local systems. No black zones anymore. Those were the places we lost completely in the first week, before Navarra established the communication protocols. Before we learned this wasn't conquest, it was an invitation. Sir? The voice belongs to Marcus Chun, my new deputy coordinator. 26 years old, trained in crisis management at Georgetown, and thrown into a job that requires expertise no university teaches. The morning reports are ready. I gesture to the chair across from my desk. The furniture is still government-issue metal and vinyl, but organic growth has begun integrating with the structure. Thin, root-like filaments trace along the chair legs, not replacing the metal but reinforcing it, creating hybrid strength that exceeds either material alone. What's the overnight summary? Marcus consults his tablet, a device that's half traditional electronics, half biological interface. The converted settlements gift these hybrid technologies to human communities willing to accept them. They work better than our old equipment, but they require a level of trust that some settlements refuse to grant. Settlement report: 347 traditional human communities confirmed operational. Population estimate 2.3 million across the northern corridor. Resource status is complicated. How complicated? The Pennsylvania farming communities are reporting crop yields 300% above normal. The biological enhancement they accepted for their soil systems is exceeding all projections. But the Ohio settlements that refused network integration are facing third-week food shortages. I nod, making notes. This is the new reality: prosperity through collaboration, hardship through isolation. But choice remains paramount. That was Navarra's final gift to us before her consciousness merged fully with the network, guaranteed human autonomy over the integration process. Communication log? 17 messages from converted settlements requesting expanded trade relationships. 5 communities asking for technical assistance with infrastructure repairs. 3. He hesitates. 3 what? 3 requests for conversion consultation. People want to understand the process before making decisions. This is the part that keeps me awake at night, not the horror of forced transformation. We established early that the network requires consent for full integration. But the temptation of enhanced capabilities, extended lifespans, and direct communication with a planetary intelligence that could solve most of humanity's long-term survival challenges. The converted aren't trying to recruit us. They don't need to. The benefits speak for themselves. Schedule the consultations through proper channels. Full disclosure protocols, waiting periods, family notification requirements. No pressure, no urgency. Yes, sir. Marcus leaves, and I'm alone with the weight of managing humanity's transition. My desk phone rings. The old landline system we've maintained for settlements that won't use hybrid communication technology. Lane. Kale, it's Sarah. Sarah Kim, settlement coordinator for the Great Lakes Alliance. 37 traditional communities that maintain strict no-integration policies. We need to talk. What's the situation? The network is offering to repair our water treatment systems. Complete infrastructure overhaul, no integration required, no biological components in the final system. They're saying it's neighborly assistance. I lean back in my chair, feeling the organic elements respond to my weight distribution. And you're suspicious of neighborly assistance from a planetary terraforming intelligence. Shouldn't I be? The honest answer is, I don't know. The network hasn't lied to us yet, but its definition of truth operates on geological timescales. What seems like generosity today might be strategic positioning for changes we won't understand for decades. Have you talked to Navarra? We've requested communication. She's different now, Kale. When she speaks through the network interfaces, she's still recognizably herself, but there's something vast behind her words. Like talking to someone who's standing next to an ocean. I understand. I've spoken with Navarra, or the consciousness that was Navarra, 3 times since her integration. Each conversation confirms that she maintains her identity, her values, her concern for human welfare. But she also possesses knowledge and perspective that no individual human mind was designed to contain. My recommendation: accept the assistance. Monitor the work. If they overstep agreed boundaries, we address it through established protocols. You trust them. I trust her. And I trust our ability to adapt if that trust proves misplaced. After Sarah disconnects, I walk to the window. The view shows what used to be downtown Washington, now a hybrid cityscape where organic towers grow alongside traditional buildings. The converted zones hum with activity that's both alien and oddly familiar. People moving through the streets, but with purpose and coordination that suggests shared awareness. Children play in parks where the grass grows in patterns too perfect for nature, too beautiful for human design. Hybrid offspring of 2 kinds of intelligence learning to balance individual creativity with collective knowledge. My tablet chimes. Message from the Korean Presbyterian Church settlement in Virginia, my parents' community. They've voted to accept limited infrastructure integration for medical support systems. My father, stubborn and proud for 73 years, agreed to network-enhanced cardiac monitoring that could extend his life by decades. We raised you to make hard choices, his message reads. Now we're learning to make them too. I draft my response, but the words feel inadequate. How do you tell your parents that their courage in embracing change exceeds anything you've managed in this new world? The afternoon brings a video conference with settlement coordinators across the region. 23 faces on my screen, representing communities that range from radical isolationists to enthusiastic collaborators. These weekly meetings help maintain communication and coordinate resource sharing. Status reports, please. Atlanta region first. Jennifer Walsh, coordinator for the Georgia settlements, looks tired but hopeful. We've completed the first phase of hybrid agricultural integration. Crop yields are stabilizing at 280% above pre-transformation levels. No adverse effects on human health, no biological dependency issues. Our communities are voting to expand the program. Environmental impact? Positive. Soil regeneration, carbon sequestration, biodiversity enhancement. The network seems to understand ecological balance better than we ever did. Thomas Reed from the Colorado Isolation Coalition looks skeptical. And the cost? Everything has a cost. Integration requires transparency, Jennifer responds. The network knows our agricultural practices, our resource allocation, our population distribution. Privacy becomes community property. That's not a cost, says Elena Vasquez from the California Collaborative Zones. That's evolution. My communities report decreased anxiety, better conflict resolution, enhanced creativity. People are happier. People are no longer fully people, Thomas counters. This argument plays out in every meeting. The fundamental question that defines our new world: does maintaining human independence justify accepting human limitations? Or does enhanced capability justify sacrificing individual autonomy? I let the debate continue for 20 minutes before intervening. The choice remains available to every community. Integration, collaboration, or independence. All three approaches remain viable within our established territories. For now, Thomas mutters. For as long as we maintain the communication protocols, I respond. Navarra's gift ensures human choice remains protected. After the conference, I review the monthly statistical reports. The numbers tell a story of remarkable adaptation. 0 violent conflicts between human and converted communities. 89% reduction in resource scarcity among collaborative settlements. 156% increase in infrastructure reliability in integrated zones. 23% of traditional humans have requested conversion consultation. 12% have proceeded with partial integration. 3% have chosen full network integration. But statistics can't capture the deeper transformation. We're becoming something new, not post-human, but expanded human. A species learning to balance individual identity with collective intelligence. My communicator buzzes. Direct line from the network. Navarra's consciousness reaching across the hybrid communication systems. Hello, Kale. Her voice carries harmonics that human vocal cords can't produce, but the inflection is unmistakably her. Warm, slightly ironic, touched with the dry humor that got us through the worst days of the crisis. Hello, Navarra. How are you today? I'm more than I was yesterday. The network integration continues. I can feel atmospheric pressure changes across the continent, monitor resource flows through hybrid ecosystems, coordinate with converted communities in real time. But I'm still me. Still concerned about your stress levels and your terrible coffee consumption. I smiled despite the strangeness of the situation. The coffee's gotten better since we started trade relationships with the converted settlements. They understand biochemistry at the molecular level. Of course their coffee is better. Are you happy? The question escapes before I can consider whether it's appropriate to ask a consciousness that spans multiple states. Silence for 30 seconds. Then, happy is limited language for what I experience. I'm fulfilled, complete, connected to systems of meaning that extend beyond individual survival. But I miss the clarity of single perspective consciousness. There's beauty in the limitations you still experience. Do you regret the choice? No, but I understand why others choose differently. Both paths have value. Both paths are necessary for what humanity is becoming. And what is humanity becoming? Resilient, adaptive, capable of surviving and thriving on a scale we never imagined. The network isn't replacing human nature, it's extending human potential. After the conversation ends, I sit in the gathering dusk, watching the hybrid city transition into evening. Bioluminescent elements begin glowing along building surfaces, creating patterns of light that serve both aesthetic and functional purposes. Beauty and efficiency integrated at the cellular level. My final log entry of the day. Emergency protocol update, effective immediately. Classification, new standard operating procedures. Authority, Director of Human Network Relations. Distribution, all regional coordinators, settlement leaders, communication networks. Threat assessment status, manageable, ongoing adaptation required. Operational parameters. Human choice primacy. All communities maintain autonomy over integration decisions. No pressure, coercion, or artificial urgency permitted. Communication protocols. Weekly coordination meetings between traditional, collaborative, and converted communities. Transparency in resource sharing, infrastructure development, population movement. Resource allocation. Hybrid technologies available to all communities regardless of integration status. Emergency assistance provided without preconditions. Conversion consultation. Standardized information sharing for individuals considering integration. Mandatory waiting periods, family notification, psychological evaluation, reversibility assessment. Cultural preservation. Traditional human customs, languages, and practices actively protected within network territories. Diversity strengthens collective intelligence. Long-term strategic objectives. Maintain viable traditional human settlements as genetic and cultural reservoirs. Develop sustainable resource sharing between integrated and independent communities. Monitor network expansion for any deviation from cooperative protocols. Preserve human choice architecture while enabling beneficial collaboration. Personal note for future coordinators. This isn't the world we trained for. The emergency response protocols we memorized, the chain of command structures we relied on, the clear distinctions between threat and safety, none of those apply anymore. But the core principles remain. Protect human life. Preserve human dignity. Enable human choice. Adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining fundamental values. The network offers expanded consciousness, enhanced capabilities, extended lifespans, and direct access to planetary-scale intelligence. These are genuine benefits, not false promises, but they require surrendering individual autonomy in favor of collective decision-making. Some humans will choose integration. Others will choose independence. Both choices deserve support and protection. Our job is no longer crisis management, it's transition management, helping humanity navigate the space between what we were and what we're becoming. The transformation continues. We continue. Both versions of us. Status: functional coexistence established. Recommendation: maintain current protocols, monitor for changes. Next review, 60 days. Note for archival purposes. This concludes the official documentation of Emergency Protocol Alpha 7. Containment failed. Copies of this record are maintained in traditional human archives, hybrid community databases, and network collective memory systems. Humanity's story continues in multiple formats, multiple perspectives, multiple versions of consciousness. All equally valid, all equally human.